Prediction?
Yes, prediction.
Pain.
We run the clock, Super 16 is the cream of the crop. College football time of year, don't stop.
You're adding this guy.
Just another go dome with the courage, heart, skill, and will. Bringing you the best 16, serving up a plate for the football fiends. Breaking the best 16 college teams. Football fans, it's the show of your dreams.
Ain't no bias, Chris Zorich breaking truth. Traded in the golden helmet in the past for a suit. With the tape, never lies, college ball, he's a stoop. Ranking the top 16, not the top 32.
I don't mean to cut you off like a Zorich jersey, but you ain't really grinding unless the jersey dirty. Hit the running back like a Mack truck behind the 30-yard line. It's game time, my team riding off the sideline.
You look at Chris like this with a fact checklist, going over college teams like a 50 scientist. Steve streaking from his head like in his playing days. Super 16 polls over show straight away.
It's the FBS, the best of the best, from the ACC to the SEC. Pac-12, Big Ten, Mountain West, Sun Belt, and the Big 12. Open your eyelids, who the best like the Khaled? Super 16 is the cream of the crop. College football time of year, don't stop. With Christopher Zorich, just another go dome with the courage, heart, skill, and will. Bringing you the best 16, serving up a plate for the football fiends. Breaking the best 16 college teams. Football fans, it's the show of your dreams.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 7 of the Super 16 poll show with yours truly, Chris Zorich. And we're going to talk a bunch about some college football. However, we had a tremendous weekend over in Chicago. We were actually blessed with the presence of our Savior, Lord, producer, in my case, and leader of the Tape Never Lies Network, Phill Ottochian. Phil, can you jump in here for a second? It was awesome having you in Chicago, bro.
Oh my God. This is the first time I'm clear. It was amazing out there with you, bro. The 3-time All-American, CBS Defensive Player of the Year, national champion, College Football Hall of Famer, and he's maybe number 97 in your program, but number 1 in your hearts right there. Chris Zorich, what an amazing journey and weekend. You're 100% right. Obviously, the end result wasn't what us Bears fans wanted, but
yeah, that's true.
The reality is TTNL was strong out there.
Saturday night and Sunday night. I mean, I do have to comment. I mean,
yeah,
you have to feel good knowing that, you know, way back when folks started listening to you when you were not DDP, when you were just regular Phil, like a guy that had just a regular name, and you were breaking out film and everything, kind of enjoying kind of the Bears talk, and it evolved over the years. Right. So now, I mean, you got people all over the world watching your show, watching the network, but more importantly, they had a chance to kind of come out and kind of hang out with you. I mean, I'm going to be interviewing now. Talk to us about that experience. No, I'm serious, man, because these are guys that, I mean, some folks pay to get the information. Some folks watch. I mean, this is a real network.
Yeah, it was humbling, man. I mean, the love and the whole weekend, really, from my business manager, Jim Larison, bringing me and my wife. I have my niece and her fiance, who happen to be Packer fans. Dragging them.
Comment on. Yes.
And we just enjoy. I mean, TTNL family, all the producers and personalities as well, being out there. But just the treatment from the fans traveling in, you know, some people didn't even have tickets to the game, but they just wanted to shake hands and let us know, let me know, and everybody else know how much this network, how much the breakdowns, how much the shows, how much everything means to them. That beyond $1 or 50 cents, or whatever the fuck the phrase is so much more valuable. I apologize for swearing.
That's okay. Just jack up my wholesome college football 16 post show, dropping F-bomb. We're not talking about the Bears now. We're not talking about Nagy now. So
no, you're right.
Stop dropping the F-bomb, you know.
I was just emotional. It was very emotional. And just, you know, the TTNL family, you know, Cherie, Claudio, Jackal, you know, obviously George and my dad and Shane were really the only one personalities that weren't there. And, you know, that was the only negative flaw on the weekend, because it was just amazing from, like you said, from, you know, well, for me, Friday night at Gibson's and having the waiter be like, holy, it's Draft Dr. Phil. And my wife thinks Jim is playing a prank. And he's like, no, I watch you every, and he knows the whole show and took care of our bill.
Oh my God.
From that moment all the way through the weekend, just people on the streets, my niece was like, holy, there's a guy leaning out, Draft Dr. DDP, Connecticut, baby. It's just, it was unbelievable. The whole thing. And then the culmination of the tailgate with the fans. I mean, Dave Smith and his wife drove all the way from New York to be there. It was amazing. And it was amazing. And then, you know, you had the crew there. We were to meet you in person, and all of that was just, it was awesome and fun and wholesome. And just, obviously we're going to be talking about it. I believe Ron G, Caden, producers are putting together a highlight of what transpired over the whole weekend. And you were such a big part of that, Chris. I want to shout you out here right to your face.
On my own show. Thanks.
On your own show, on the Super 16 Poll Show. I just, you know, a lot of people talk the talk, but can't walk the walk. But you certainly walk the walk. Your smile, as my wife's, I'm stealing from her, lights up a room. Your hands are ginormous, according to my niece. She was afraid that she would lose her hand. But your hugs and your compassion with everybody, just everybody was like, holy cow, Chris is in the house. And you brought, you know, we could tell you took a lot of pride in being a part of our network. Everybody felt that. And, you know, your story, I always say Chris is so humble. He doesn't talk about himself as I talk about him, because he was a great football player and someone I idolized growing up as a kid, because I always rooted for the underdog. And you were that. And to get to where you got to with the Bears, my Bears, watching you, and now you're a part of this, to see you in action, a lot of athletes, a lot of people, you know, okay, that's it. I can't do any more. You're out at the tailgate. I'm turning around. You're bringing whiskey bottles out there. We're taking shots. We're cheering on the Bears, and all the fans got time with you. You're signing autographs out there, signing a couple Zorich jerseys.
Hey, how about that? See, now, I think you actually paid a guy to come up and say he just happened to be right across the street.
Chris Jackal and Claudio are like, holy cow. They saw the guy walking. There's a Zorich jersey. And they were like, imagine if this dude comes over to our area. And sure enough, he was stationed right across. And it just, that's God's way. That's what it is. Because TTNL was on fire there. Everybody was coming over. And you're a huge part of that too, man. I know you give me a lot of love and I appreciate it. But everybody had their hand in this weekend. And we're going to be covering this tomorrow, because the Bears and Nagy continue to ask the whys. We're going to have a lot of answers tomorrow.
For those folks who work there, right, and you'll have a chance to see it because they're going to put together a video. Yeah. But, I mean, I talked to a couple that I think drove up from Indy. I mean, I know you said the New York folks. Yep. there's a couple of from, I forgot his name, but folks are from Indy. And the idea, though, and I was just kind of watching, I was just kind of fading the back, kind of watching, and, you're sitting there like the mayor, shaking hands, kissing babies, and it's so cool to kind of see kind of you in your element, right? Outside of, what you have behind you and what I see all the time, but kind of seeing you interact with the fans is really kind of cool for me to see, because these are dedicated folks who've been listening for years, and having a chance to kind of meet you for the first time in person or kind of take a picture, stuff like that. As a fan, that's really cool to watch. And, you're really cool about it. You weren't blowing people off. You weren't not signing for little kids. You're like, oh, sure, come up and I'll kiss the babies. I'm the man. But no, it was really cool, because having a chance to kind of see everyone who's worked so hard over the years really kind of be rewarded by, an event Saturday night, and then, now the game and tailgate and stuff. It was really nice time. And, I'm proud to say that I'm part, one, your friend, but also part of something that you kind of put together just from an idea. And I think that's really commendable on your part, but more importantly, having a chance to kind of come out and kind of hang out with your fans is cool. And you got an awesome wife. Steph is awesome. So
I appreciate it. She is. Honestly, Chris, I learned a long time ago as a little boy, from Freeman McNeil, who was a former New York Jet. I just remember him. He was a star from UCLA, and he signed everybody's autograph. He just was so compassionate. And I said, that's what I want to be. And to see you. And I know this is like a love session for some people. They don't have to watch this part. But the reality of truth, this world is full of drama and deceit, jealousy, anger. You got the COVID virus, and you have a lot of people with a lot of things going on in their lives. We only get one life. So if I can go out there with so many people, and I know I bust my hump, I bust my ass to make this the best network, the best shows, and have a lot of fun to take people's minds, but also speak the truth about college football with you and the Chicago Bears on our network all the time. Football 24/7, as my wife knows. But to be there with Rick Riggs and his wife and Bill, how they traveled up, and Dave Smith and his wife, and Chris Sandlin, and all of these, there was hundreds of people there. My wife's like, I didn't even get to see you, because you're just, I felt like I was at the wedding, you don't even get to eat. And I was so tired because I had to move my hotel because it was awful. It was a crazy weekend. So honestly, I'll tell the whole story tomorrow, but I just thank you so much, because I think you're coming in late to the network, but you're the cherry on top. You know what I'm saying? And to how you handled yourself here, here's a picture of me and you, and that shows you the size difference here.
It's not that much.
You and your wife just carry yourself with such moral compass and such a compassionate, empathetic energy that you just fit right in. And I remember Claudio saying, yo, Chris Zorich is just like one of us. He's the coolest dude. And that's the vibe, and why Shane and I sat down with you and like, listen, we need to have you here. And I thank God that you're a part of this, and our future is bright because you're a part of this. And that's what it's all about with those people. And we're going to do something better the next time. Trust me. There's Rick Riggs. So yeah, next time we flew the flag out there.
Gotta represent, yes.
It was so tight, and those were tight quarters for people to find us.
Lord, and the wind wasn't blowing. Hold on, the wind wasn't blowing, so the flag was kind of like, it was like this is the pole. The flag was all, and I'm like, where the hell, dude? I didn't even know Soldier Field. Come on, man. I was like, what's? I mean, I don't know Soldier Field parking lot. I'm like, what? So then, and I got some stuff with me, got some beer. I mean, it was just like, what? what's going on? But we found it, and dude, literally, it was a blast, man. So I mean, I don't know if you do this every year, but I mean, you should kind of think of.
I talked to my wife. I think we have to do this every year because even I must have at least, and I'm not even exaggerating, if I have to screenshot this, I would say 80 to 100 emails and DMs saying, I wish I was there. I wish I could come.
That's
so
awesome.
We did promote the hell out of it.
Okay.
Cherie, right? I mean, we did let people were still wait, you're in town? I'm like, I've been saying this for months on every show. We're coming. So I know COVID the year before we were going to do it. And this year, Shane, obviously with Riley having, so next year, 100%, I am coming back to Chicago this year. We're not going to do the whole tailgate thing. I'm bringing my son who just wants to meet Chris Zorich and wants to see the Chicago Bears. That's a whole nother show, but I am coming back, but we are going to do, you know what we're going to do, Chris, because of the technical difficulties in the Soldier Field parking lot with the Wi-Fi and the sick, we're just going to have a after the game place, like where Sammy the Bull with that bar, Crossroads.
Okay.
BHL will be live from the Crossroads after the game. So maybe it'll be an hour and a half to 2 hours after the game. Then we go live. This way we can get people involved because it was so hard. I couldn't hear. No one could hear what I was saying on the show.
Well, I mean, the first part, and then eventually you guys got to click up. But I think it really kind of showed some authenticity.
Oh yeah.
That, you're out there kind of hanging out with fans, and and I love kind of how you're giving the perspective of what was going on while you were in the stadium, right? How the fans are reacting. And I think it was just great to kind of have you out there. But no, I understand what you're saying. I mean, it'd be cool if you can have a chance to kind of go to a local bar or something around there to kind of do the show afterward.
Yeah, I think that's how we're going to have to do it because I'm just a stickler for clarity in the audio, and I know the guys were too. And Ivan and Ron were like freaking the Keebler elves hustling to try to fix all this stuff, and it's nobody's fault. It's just the technology is
and then I mean, my wife was telling me that there's shitty reception out there anyway. Yeah, she was trying to do the Facebook Live thing, and it kept going out. So I mean, it was kind of bad reception anyway. So
there's so many people drawing from the satellite, whatever service. T-Mobile.
Well, it's the Bears. So I'm sure they probably had one. They probably had one hotspot off of somebody's phone. So I'm sure that's what was trying to.
Could they throw some Wi-Fi in the parking lot? Could they afford that, Ted?
Just a little bit.
You do have it in the stadium. They give you some Wi-Fi there. But anyway, yes, amazing. TTNL, as I said to Ron G, the Bears might have lost, but TTNL won this weekend.
Absolutely. I agree.
And that's what we wanted. And you were the fullback from the one, getting that football and getting it in the end zone. That you ended up, finishing the drive for us because I really believe, Chris, your energy and your presence there just validated everything that we stand for and what we do for the network.
Until my wife snagged me out of there because I had to do that appearance. So
listen,
I do apologize about that.
You don't have to.
I would have been out there getting drunk and stuff like that, but I had to work.
Were you ready to get into the Super 16 poll?
I am, but I do want to say, Sheree, it was awesome meeting you for the first time in person.
There she is.
Thank you very much. It's glad, and we actually traded some Harold's chicken stories. So, funny thing. On the way back, I wanted to stop by, but I wanted to stop at Harold's, but the line was so long, and I kind of thought about you as I kind of drove away there. So,
was it the one in the South Loop?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
You didn't miss anything.
And Checkmark Heralds will not be a sponsor. Okay.
No, not that location.
That one. That location needs improvement, Chris.
Exactly.
That's
There you
what
go.
I'm saying. Yes. Next time I'll make sure I get the Harold's chicken. And I'll be talking about the taste of Chicago that we were able to. Steph's opinion on the pizza versus New Haven pizza tomorrow. All of that stuff we're going to get into on Keeping It 100 tomorrow with Dion Miller's returning to talk about Bears Packers and get us ready for Bears Bucks and to say hello to Chris Zorich. She was trying to get out to the lot. I was like, listen, I understand.
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that. It was,
dude, it was I mean, like literally,
you were just.
I mean, I had to go through sideways.
Yeah, you had.
I mean, it was tight, and they obviously know what they're doing. They're packing folks in, but it was crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, if you're COVID fearful, that was not the place you want to be.
Oh God, no.
Probably not.
Exactly. All right, Cherie, that was so much fun. Obviously, we'll talk about it tomorrow night, but I want to double down on Chris, what he said. I love the picture of all me, you, Cool Kennedy, Ron G.
I had a chance to finally meet the voice, everything. I mean,
Lawrence
awesome,
Fleming.
It was great. And of course, I embarrassed the shit out of him, right? Because I'm like, dude, say something to my wife. He's like, come on, man. I mean, I said, no, say something. He's like, really? And then she heard me. He was like, oh, you're very white. He was like, now you put me on the spot. I'm just like, just say Alabama. I mean, I just totally embarrassed. I'm like a little kid, man. So,
yes.
Chris, your wife was very nice, though. I enjoyed meeting her as well.
Well, thank you very much. I will definitely tell her that.
She was phenomenal. And so are you. And hopefully your poll reflects for Cherie. So she can smile. We got a show. We got a show.
Sitting there hanging out.
Yeah. I'm going to let you run.
All right, folks. This is week 7 of the Super 16 post show. Chris Zorich. I apologize about the interlude, and also moving to Tuesday. We obviously are going to be on Mondays at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. But in respect to Phil and also Cherie traveling and everything, it would have been kind of crazy to try to have the show on Monday. They were cool with it, so we kind of moved it to today. But we still are going to talk some college football. So let's go to number 16.
Number 16, Purdue.
Ooh, Lord, I know people are like, what the hell is going on? That's the same thing I thought, Phil. I mean, I was texting you. I'm not sure what restaurant you were at or where you were, but I was like, dude, can you believe this? I mean, it was craziness.
Yes, I was down at Gino's East.
Okay, all right. That was the first spot, or
that was the first spot. Okay. That was spot. Well, no, Gibson's was the first spot.
Okay, all right.
That was Friday night.
Sure.
Gino's East for lunch. That was the second or third spot, if you include breakfast and stuff. But yeah, that's where I was. And I was begging the waiter or the guy who had a bad attitude. I can't remember his name. I'm like, can you put the Iowa game on here? Why am I watching last night's baseball game? Like, this is ridiculous. I asked him 3 times. I went up to the manager. Finally, the Iowa game came on, and Zorich just texted me. I'm like, oh my God, I called this.
You did actually, and it's crazy because your guy though, the center that you and your dad talked about, was murdering people. I mean, he was out of control. He was the only person.
Yes,
because I mean they were flat. What's his name? David Bell, the receiver. I mean, he was averaging like 100 yards before that, 240 yards.
He was killing
on the number 2 team in the country. So, needless to say, I'm throwing Purdue in there, and it's interesting because even though Texas A&M beat Alabama a couple weeks back, they weren't in there, and I have a reason why. But it's interesting because I really want folks to kind of keep an eye on this Purdue team. They really have a chance. I mean, right now they're second in the Big Ten West. They do have some games coming up, but it's kind of interesting to kind of keep an eye on Purdue here, which I'm totally surprised because the 4 years I played Purdue, we like demolished them. So the idea that Purdue is in my Super 16 is awesome. So let's give it up to Purdue. They're going to have a chance to play Wisconsin next. So let's move on to number 15.
Number 15, Texas A&M.
Now these guys are back. They actually beat a okay Missouri team 35-14. I was kind of curious to see how they would play after the mind-boggling win against Alabama. And oftentimes you see, I mean, at the end of the day, these are 18, 19-year-old kids who have their own issues at home, school, whatever it is, and they have to be ready to play. But after beating an Alabama, and excuse me, a number one Alabama team like that, the idea of kind of going into your next game flat is a really big possibility. So I was kind of curious to kind of see how they were, again, before I ranked them. But if you kind of go back and look, the teams that they lost against weren't all that great. So that's the reason why they're making it for the first time, I think maybe since week one. But it's kind of interesting because if you look at them, they really have a chance to win out. And they could actually depending on how Alabama does, they could actually represent the SEC West in the championship game, depending. But their two losses, I think it's Arkansas, I think, as well. So they do have a chance to represent the SEC West. The next game they have coming up is going to be South Carolina, and it's really they have to win that game. But again, keep an eye on Texas A&M. They really have a chance to they really might win the table.
Yeah, they did lose to Arkansas, Chris, 20-10. Right.
Yeah.
That was week 2.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm just telling folks to watch them. Let's go to number 14.
Number 14, Ole Miss.
Okay, now this game was crazy. For folks who might not know, Lane Kiffin is the current head coach at Ole Miss and used to coach at Tennessee for a year. And literally, and I think it was SC that he left to, but literally, Phil, I don't know if you remember this, but he left literally like in the middle of the night.
Yes.
And at one point, I thought
like
this
the
was
Colts.
Seriously, bro, like this was crazy because they got wind of it.
Yeah.
And at one point, like he was afraid to leave the building.
Yeah, they had threats on his family.
They burned a mattress in front of him, which, I mean, you look at it and say, okay, I want those type of fans. But, you know, when it gets a little over the line, it gets kind of crazy. Yeah. But we found out here, right? So they started to throw bottles, all types of crazy stuff at the players in lane. Yeah, I don't know if you saw this. They got fined by the SEC $250,000.
Oh, the university did.
Yes.
I did not see that. That's good, though, because they even threw a golf ball at him.
See?
Imagine getting hit in the head with a golf ball, someone whipping that thing at you.
It was kind of interesting because they were talking about how they want to try to get as much surveillance, as much video as they can, because if they can start identifying people, those guys are going to get in trouble. But, you know, when you talk, I mean, storming the field is
Chris,
one thing.
You have to put a freaking line down. This isn't
exactly.
All right. He left you. He's a jerk. You hate him.
Right.
You're not. I mean, I'm not running on the field tackling Aaron Rodgers. You know what I'm saying? And he's saying, fuck you, F you. I'm sorry. F you, you. I own you. I mean, Lane's just going in there coaching. His actions might have said that same thing, but I'm with you. You got all these cameras, HD. Let's go. Let's identify some of these people.
Sure.
I mean, in a country that got attacked the White House or whatever, the Capitol building we're able to identify these people
Right.
with camera. We need to do the same thing in sports
Sure.
and hold them accountable so we could put an end to that.
Sure.
They wouldn't let Cool Kennedy bring his bag, a clear bag. It was too big. It was like 2 inches too big. Nope, can't bring it. But Tennessee are letting freaking golf clubs, knives. What are we doing here?
Bayonets, everything. And it's crazy because they're literally talking about like identifying folks. So now what the SEC mandated from the universities that they have to put together this whole protocol thing about making sure that what people can bring in, making sure that they can't pull anything out, all this stuff, which I think should happen, because although I'm excited about college football fans and fans are great, I mean, you kind of take it too far. You take it too far when you start throwing things at the athletes, at the coaches. I mean, really, this happened in basketball a couple times, and so we're actually seeing it kind of come over into college football. And I'm sure the university now is going to be pissed because you're talking about $250,000, regardless if they're in the SEC or not. That's money that I'm sure they already had accounted for, and now there's some programming that may not happen because they didn't think that they were going to start throwing food and cans and popping golf balls and stuff at the
soccer team's gonna suffer, Chris. The soccer team,
right? It's the Olympic sports that benefit from all the money that the football team raises. Well, I shouldn't say raise, but they're able to get their revenue to have an opportunity for other teams to participate. So I thought that was kind of crazy. Their next team they're going to be playing is LSU, which I'm actually going to talk about later. When that whole situation was just kind of crazy. But let's go on to number 14. 14.
Number 14.
Well, and I guess you were telling me we probably should have stayed there for 14 because it was Mississippi. So, I mean,
number 13, Kentucky.
Now, Chris has had a long weekend with TTNL.
I am so sorry about that.
Number 13 just reminded him of when the Bears traded for Rick Meyer.
Oh, that was a disaster.
So that's why.
I have a funny story about that. So,
do you?
Dave wants that drafts Rick Meyer, right? Or I'm sorry, they trade for Rick Meyer, and he calls him in his office and says, "Hey, you know what? I just want to let you know because you're a Notre Dame guy. Rick Meyer's a Notre Dame guy. We have to cut half your salary because we're going to bring."
Come on!
I swear, my mom's great. We're gonna cut half your salary so we can take Rick Meyer. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. So you kind of relayed the whole Notre Dame. I mean, I played with Rick Meyer, right? So right. You're gonna blame him that you're gonna take half my salary.
This is the way you do business.
Guy's an idiot. Hey,
wait a second. Rick Meyer is from Notre Dame. You're from Notre Dame. Let's take half your money, give it to Rick. You should feel good about that because he's from
family. It stays in the family. Idiot.
Are you kidding me?
Needless to say, I'm not a Dave Wannstedt.
The Bears never cease to amaze you.
Hey, man. Absolutely. So I'm sorry. So we are on Kentucky, number 13. I apologize about that. Thank you, Phil. I did have a long week, but that's okay because I'm here. This is kind of interesting. They dropped down 4 after losing to Georgia, but it's kind of interesting. 30-13 lost against Georgia. They actually scored the highest amount of points. I think somebody else scored 13. So in that sense, they kind of showed up. I mean, it's their first loss. They actually have a chance to kind of do some stuff, but they actually held their ground against the number 1 team in the country, which, I mean, this is still going to be an amazing kind of fairy tale year for them. And the interesting thing is that they have a chance, if they win out, which they really have a huge possibility to, they're going to be number 2 in the SEC East. Now, before the season, I'm sure if they really sat down and talked to coaches, they probably wouldn't say, hey, you know what? We're going to be in the top 3 in the SEC East. But they're actually going to be 2 behind Georgia. So I think that's going to be really, really great for the program. Stoops' brother is there. So I think they're going to do really well. They have an opponent coming up, Mississippi State, which is okay. I mean, we had a chance to kind of see the air raid against Alabama. They obviously didn't fare too well, but I think it's going to be an interesting year for Kentucky. This is another team that, folks should have a chance to kind of look out for because they could actually do some stuff. So now we're going to go to number 12. Yes, I have it written down here. Number 12.
Number 12. Wake Forest.
Now, outside of Kentucky, this is my kind of storybook year team here because, again, best team in the ACC. They did not go into the season thinking that they were going to be the best team in the ACC. That's craziness. They have a chance to kind of win out. I think they're in the Atlantic division, so they're going to have a chance to play for the ACC championship and could very well beat them. So now you're talking about, Phil, might want to jump in on this one. If if Wake Forest wins out, they win the ACC championship, do they get a spot in the college football playoff? Now, mind you, they have not beaten a ranked team. They actually have not played a ranked team.
Right.
So do you think they would deserve a spot in the college football playoff Final Four, possibly?
Well, let's look at their schedule.
Please
here.
do.
So you got, they beat Florida State early on. Then they beat Virginia. Then they beat Louisville. Then they beat Syracuse in overtime, which was a crazy game. Now they play Army this Saturday, which is tough. More tough than people realize because Army gets that bias, but better. And then you got Duke, UNC. Then they'll face a ranked team right now in NC State.
Okay, right.
Clemson on November 20th will be the game because I don't care what Clemson would be ranked or what they won't be ranked.
Sure.
That's the game to say, okay, you belong. If you go all of this way, beat Clemson, and then they finish up Thanksgiving weekend, Chris, against BC. Then I believe they have a fight to say we belong in this, playoffs. But again, you're going to look at the field. There's still so much time.
Sure.
But if they go undefeated, they beat Clemson, they beat NC State, I think they have a legit gripe. I mean, this football team is something out of nowhere. Out of those underdog stories.
Seriously. Well, okay. So I'm going to kind of take the opposite side. I'm going to do counterpoint here. Yes. The fact that they have a chance to play one ranked team and currently in a different poll.
Right. I like how you did that.
Remember that?
Yes. That's
Super
what I'm
16. So theoretically, NC State isn't even ranked theoretically, right? Because we're biased for this one. So I technically was right because they will play an unranked team. So I got in my notes, man. Unranked team. Somebody talked about this other poll that this other team may be ranked, but I'm being facetious. I mean, if they only beat one ranked team, right? Do they deserve a chance? And this goes back to what Dabo said a couple of years ago that, I mean, the ACC, they're not that strong.
Right. Hey, listen, if you go undefeated, you have to be in the conversation. It's college football in it above itself is too tough to go undefeated. And then you have the likes of Clemson in a down year, but there's still somebody When was the last time Wake Forest beat Clemson?
That's
1986 with Top Gun.
With Top Gun and Family Ties and
with Desmond Clark playing tight end. This is where we're at. So I just think we have, obviously that's far off. Right now, this team is playing football. They had a tough hurdle with Syracuse, but every weekend, these football teams define themselves. And like I said, with Iowa, it seems like past history, every time they get in that top 5 and they're setting the tone, they let down against an opponent they should normally beat. And that's what happened. So you have to break those barriers. Right now, Wake is doing that.
Sure.
So we'll see how they do. That's why the NCAA playoffs are due to change after the 225 contract.
But I'm Chuck, here's the thing, though. You got to be careful what you wish for, because they talked about a 12-team system, and they will go into it ranking these teams. But when you start kind of ranking the teams, there's going to be a huge SEC lean because of how good the teams are. And now people are going to say, well, wait a minute, we opened it up to the 12, but out of the 12, 6 are SEC teams. One may be a Pac-12, and then all of a sudden people are going to be, it's an SEC bias.
Right now, in Zorich is 12, Wake's in. So there you go.
Wake's in. Hey, let's go.
Wake's in.
All right.
And stop overlooking the Big Ten. They still have some hope.
They do.
So you got to listen. I don't like the NFL format for college, like win your division, like the NCAA basketball does. Win your division, right. You're in. I like what you're doing. Common opponent, like rank it outright. Have 2 voting processes: coaches poll, Zorich's poll. Those are the writers are always biased.
Sure.
They're always, you see it every time. There's 1 vote for freaking Oregon and they lost twice. Right. And then there's an undefeated. Obviously the Oregon beat writer gave him that vote. Right. That shouldn't happen. So coaches, and former players like Chris Zorich should be voting on these things. But that's another show.
I like that.
That's another show. I gave you some props. Super 16 poll show should decide.
The
final 12.
Watch out. Watch out. That would be nuts. All right. We're going to go to number 11.
Number 11, Michigan.
All right. Michigan moves up 1 spot. After bye week, they were chilling. Hopefully they have a chance to kind of see what they have ahead. And it's going to be crazy because although they play Northwestern next week, they play a number 9 Michigan State, a number 8 Penn State, and then a number 5 Ohio State. So literally they were able to kind of, I don't want to say skate, but it was the easy part of their schedule. They had a bye, and then they're going to play Northwestern. So, hopefully they'll have a chance to rest some of their starters and have a chance to play some of the younger guys. But then after that, it's going to be a huge – and again, I'm not sure when the last time Michigan State and Michigan were ranked so high that they had a chance to compete. So that's going to be a special game. But again, they got Penn State, and that the one at the end of the year that's been kind of a monkey on Harbaugh's back is Ohio State. So not really excited about who they beat, but they're going to be in a hunt after this week. So it's going to be exciting. Let's go to number 10.
Number 10, Oklahoma State.
Okay, so now we have an Oklahoma State team who actually moved up 1 after beating Texas, after Texas lost to Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry showdown, patty cake, whatever it was. But it's kind of interesting because the what are they? Who's the mascot for Oklahoma State?
The Cowboy.
Yes. So the Cowboys, they're going to have a chance to play Oklahoma at the end of the year. So they'll probably win out, have a chance to play Oklahoma in the Battle of Bedlam. And I think that's going to be huge. So, I mean, the way Oklahoma's been playing, I mean, they, beat Tulane by like 1.5 or whatever it was in overtime. So, I mean, that's going to be an exciting game. So, although I would like to take the philosophy that my coach told me a million years ago, take each day, take each practice, take each game at a time. Now I can talk and brag and just say, hey, they'll win out, but an exciting game was going to be against Oklahoma. However, their next opponent is Iowa State. And be careful, although I think Iowa State now is, I think they're like 4-2 or something like that. They do have a chance to kind of sneak up on you. So just be a little careful. However, I think they are going to win out. And the most exciting game is going to be in the Big 12. It was going to be the Battle of Bedlam. So let's go to number 9.
Number 9, Michigan State University.
And we were just talking about Michigan State. So it's kind of interesting. They move up 9 after beating Indiana 20-15. Again, not a spectacular win. Indiana's year was last year, but it was good enough for them to go up. But here's the crazy thing. I mean, they have Michigan coming up, who's 11. They got Purdue now coming up, who's ranked, again, in my poll, 16. Ohio State, and they're going to end with Penn State. So, again, it's going to be – I'm surprised. Phil, I don't know if you thought the Big Ten was going to be this tough, but you throw in Purdue now, and it makes it interesting.
Yeah, it does. I thought the Big Ten was going to be this tough. I had high hopes for Iowa, Penn State, Michigan. Obviously, there was an unknown with Justin Fields leaving Ohio State. What quarterback? They've really found their identity now. So they've become a danger to the Big Ten because Ohio State, I mean, I think versus Alabama, they're the number 1 recruiter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Ohio State and Alabama get these top shelf fillets going into their So yeah, I'm not surprised. I've always loved the Big Ten. And I know last season and the year before SEC, then it's Big Ten winning out. So they always show up, but when you have these kind of coaches that preach fundamentals, obviously Nick Saban being one of them in the SEC, but a lot of the SEC get over on talent and speed and big plays. And we know about that in Chicago. Big plays are nice, but you really have to have the foundation of fundamentals. Right. I think that's where Iowa, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State really do their dirty work. And I know a lot of people hate that, but this is why I believe Elite 8 at least. Elite 8 college football. Let's find out who can, withstand the playoffs. Football is a different game. And any given day, anybody could win. And that's why I think
as we've seen.
As we've seen. But yeah, I'll shut up.
No, your comments are awesome, man. I'm a fan. They have a bye this week. They're going to need it because they're literally going to roll out, and they have just a really tough schedule again. Throwing that Purdue in there now that they're ranked, it's going to be just tough for Michigan State. So let's go to number 8.
Number 8, Penn State.
Okay, we were just talking about them. Obviously, they have a couple more games coming up that are going to be tough opponents as well. We talked about Michigan State and Michigan. They're actually coming off of a bye week to play Illinois. I wish they would hopefully have a chance to kind of make it where they have a chance to kind of make that buy or have that buy before one of their tougher games. But depending on how their schedule works out, and I know a lot of times they aren't even in control of their own schedule when you talk about a big conference like that. So excited. They're hopefully they learned the issues they had when they lost to Iowa, but it's going to be interesting. I'm not as excited about Penn State for some reason. Not as excited about kind of the up and coming teams like your Michigan States. So, my 2 cents. All right, now let's move to number 7.
Number 7, Iowa.
Okay, now we just talked about this earlier when we had a chance to talk about Purdue. As I said before, their center Phil just dominated.
I had a good scouting eye on this guy, right?
I mean, he was pulling and taking out ends. I was like, wow. I only started watching because you're talking about it.
Yeah, I know the offensive line. That's one thing I can hang my hat on. And this kid just popping off the tape every time you watch him, and he is a unbelievable talent at the center position. And you saw him against Purdue, how he's been doing that consistently. Every kid is going to make their mistakes, but
right.
He is a polished fundamentally, and he's got that nastiness that you want to see from an offensive lineman at the point of attack. Something us Bears fans, again, our center position is so weak right now. It is disappointing. I don't want to go off on a rant, so I'll save it for tomorrow. But this kid would be like pulling up in a Lamborghini.
Hello.
Where we right now are driving and no offense to anybody who drives this vehicle, we are driving the Honda Civic.
Hey, get off my Civic, bro. Get off my Civic. They were not able to establish the run. And I think the Iowa quarterback, I want to say, threw like 3 picks or 4 picks or something like that, which actually was the most he had thrown like leading up to this game. It was just a disastrous game. And like literally being ranked number 2, having a chance to be in that top 5, is huge. You can literally write your own destiny. And if for some reason you don't do well in the Big Ten championship game, you might not drop that far. But now, it's just going to be tough for Iowa to kind of bounce back from this. They'll have a chance to win the Big Ten West, but it'll be interesting to see what happens who they face in the Big Ten championship. They have a bye, and then they're going to be playing Wisconsin. So let's go to number 6.
Number 6, Oregon.
All right, so Oregon moves up 1 spot to 6 after beating an okay Cal team. I'm still a huge fan of Anthony Brown, who's their quarterback. He's been throwing up some good numbers. What happened to the defensive end? Phil, remember we were talking about this guy, Kayvon Thibodeau?
Yeah.
A lot of folks had him as like a Heisman candidate. He's only had 2 sacks. I know he was out a couple games, but
he got banged up early.
Mm-hmm.
What did you say? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
You just have to be more dominant. If they were talking about kind of the idea of maybe him being one of the first defensive players to get the Heisman, it just kind of goes to show you, man, be careful. I'll say I had Spencer Rattler up there.
Yeah, Spencer.
And even the year before that, they could have just given it to the Clemson quarterback, but then they had to kind of take
Trevor Lawrence.
Yes.
And then they had to pull that back.
So, again, I think their best chance was the game they lost, and it just really devastated them. It was hard watching that because, like, literally their dreams were gone. They'll do well in the Pac-12, but they're not going to have a chance to get into the college football playoff. Again, my opinion.
That's the thing that sucks, though, because Alabama loses, and they have probably an opportunity to work themselves back. Oregon standing up, delivering. They had a letdown. So this is where I believe you got to open up the numbers, so you can. There's too much riding on one loss. Sure. And then when there's a bias one loss, because then the thing that I hate the most, Chris, is there's no perspective on what those teams look like at that time.
Right.
So like when Notre Dame beat Florida State with all the momentum, that's not going in the Blog Boys ranking.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, but in that moment, Florida State was a top ranked team, and so was Notre Dame. That those moments have to stay that course, because that's the moment that defines where these teams are going, and that's what I think the history of this with these writers polls, the coaches poll, the AP poll, this poll, 16 poll should decide. The Super 16 poll show.
Thank you, sir.
Chris Zorich needs to decide, because I think you'd get it right. I'm telling you, folks, this guy spends all his time like going back and forth and doing it with no bias, just complete truth, and taking it very serious on how he ranks. Even if I break his chops, he's still getting to his top 16.
And now we're going to go to number 5.
Number 5, Ohio State.
Okay, so as you know, we were talking about Ohio State before. They move up one spot to number 5. They had a bye week. They'll probably win over their next couple opponents. They have Indiana next. Again, I don't feel like anybody in their division could really kind of compete with them. And right now, they're throwing up crazy numbers. They're throwing up like 56 points because they want to go out and prove that their loss is behind them, which every team should kind of take lessons from. They need to go out and throw 50, 60 points on people to let them know that they belong. So you don't mean to tell me that when the college football selection committee, when they get together, and Ohio State, yes, they have that one loss, but then after that, it's 60, 56, 49. I mean, it's high numbers, and they're rolling on people because they can. And the change they had after the loss really kind of helped them and allowed them to now be in the top 5, but a little bit more importantly, now a contender. So now, depending on if a team loses ahead of them, they have a chance to get in there. And then with a Big Ten championship, and if it's against Iowa's going to be ranked in the top 10. It's going to look better. So I just think that right now, and I know people are going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but maybe it was time for them to lose, just like I think about Alabama. I think that although it was a loss, I don't think Nick really hated that loss because guys may have been getting complacent, reading kind of their highlights in newspapers and stuff like that. And, they've been ranked number 1 for a very long time. They probably don't think their shit stinks. And then all of a sudden they get beat by an unranked Texas A&M team. So maybe it was a lesson that they learned, and hopefully Ohio State learned that lesson too. But we're seeing what's happening with Ohio State. They're going out and rolling on people, which they should. So let's move now to number 4.
Number 4, Oklahoma.
So this is a good one. They moved up one spot to 4 after beating TCU 52-30. And last week we talked about who's going to start. What's the controversy going to be? Caleb threw up a gazillion points after he replaced Rattler. Now during the week leading up to the game, the head coach was talking about, hey, there are co-starters. He waited until game day, kind of announced who the starter was. It was Caleb Williams, and he threw up 295 points. All of a sudden now you see Spencer Rattler didn't even get a snap. I mean, he had 0 yards. So now what does he do? He's a redshirt sophomore. Phil, do you think he's going to jump into the portal, or? I mean,
yeah, I definitely see this kid based on
he was a Heisman candidate.
Well, just based Heisman candidate based on what I saw on that QB1 show on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's still on there. Like, they removed the Justin Fields one. I don't know why.
Okay.
Those shows are really good because you get a real showcase of the kid, like Jake Fromm. You saw him.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw a bunch of these guys that are in the NFL now. But I saw Rattler. I saw Tate. Always forget the kid's name. He went to Ohio State. Then he went to Miami. Now he's playing a receiver there. I saw his arrogance. There's a certain temperament. There's got to be a level of cockiness that a quarterback has to have,
sure,
but not this conceitedness, if you understand, the difference. So
sure.
Rattler came off to me as a little conceited, as opposed to being a little cocky with a swagger that, I'm about the team and winning. So I totally, based on that, think that he's going to hit the portal. If the Dr. Pepper doors open up, he's going through that.
I love that commercial.
Yeah, I love it. We're going to get you in that commercial, man.
They are geniuses, especially the Bob.
Brian Bosworth's in it. We got to get Zorich.
Why not?
I'm going to work on that. Seriously. I'm going to talk to the people at Walter Camp.
And here's the thing. Going back to Spencer Rattler, he has over 1,400 yards almost. He was having a great year. Then all of a sudden, that was halfway through the season, and now he's benched.
Yeah.
For a freshman.
I give credit to this coach for actually recognizing, hey, I'm sure they're doing reps in practice, not running scout team drills like the Bears over here. They're actually recognizing we got to prepare people to win. That's the goal. And this kid, Sean, he's got something special that I don't think you can coach. And that's a contagious leadership that his teammates believe in this kid more so than they do in Rattler. And the student body alone, remember that night?
Oh, it was crazy. Well,
you were like, holy, the whole audience.
I was watching the game, and when I was reading an article, when they announced that he was a starter, the whole stadium went nuts.
Yeah.
It's like about time. Now, again, you talk about pressure for a freshman. This kid's 18 years old. Like, what the heck, man? He's just going to take over from a potential Heisman. Hey, man. It's
that
crazy.
Kid, his feelings, he is a kid.
Sure.
Spencer Rattler. So when 112,000 are chanting for that would crush my soul.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. That's why I know he's going in the portal.
I want to make a comment. Anthony Solomon talked about how was Purdue ranked above ND when they lost to them by 14 points. Anthony, it's called beating the number 2 team in the country decisively. So regardless of how they did against ND at the time, right now they have a lot of momentum. I guarantee you, if they play Notre Dame now, it may be reversed. The score may be reversed because when you get that type of confidence, that type of fire, beating the number 2 team in the country. When was the last time that happened to Purdue? I was sitting there trying to find out who the coaches were, who the players were. It was crazy. It was crazy. So I just want to comment, but thank you very much, Anthony, for playing that out.
I'm glad you did.
All right,
let's go, Anthony. You got your answer. It's Prince Spaghetti.
Number 3.
Number 3, Cincinnati.
Yeah, dog, I'm on a bandwagon. These guys are doing everything right. They have, this was this had to be years in the making. I mean, you talk about scheduling in Notre Dame years in advance. The whole controversy about trying to be a group of 5, but believing they should be in the group of 5. All this coming to the head. Boom. Big 12 decides, you know what? Let's take them in. Now we're seeing what's happening, right? I mean, if you would have told me that Cincinnati, after beating Georgia in the bowl game, when half their players went to the NFL, they literally rode that into a nice preseason ranking. And then after that, they won some games and they played Notre Dame at the perfect time, beat Notre Dame. And now they're number 3 in the country. You cannot write a story that's better than this. So I hope someone is behind Luke Fickell with a camera, because they got to document this, because, I mean, this is going to be a storied season for them. And who's to say? I mean, they have all this momentum. And then if you think about it, I know I'm kind of throwing out all these crazy scenarios, but, I mean, right now, Georgia is number 1 in the country. I mean, I'm not going to be fooling, but Alabama's number 2. I mean, those teams, somebody has to lose there, because they're hopefully they're going to be playing a national, or they're going to be playing the SEC championship. So now you have Cincinnati is ranked number 2 in the country. I mean, that stuff, you can't make this stuff up. They did everything at the right time, and what they're doing is they're dominating. They're doing just like we talked about Ohio State was doing. They're showing people. Now, granted, the level of competition might not be up there with the Big Ten. You're still talking about the American Conference, where, you know, they're playing SMU, they're playing Tulane, schools like that, but they're throwing up decisive numbers. And I think that's really going to help them as you decide. It's interesting. I was talking to some of my former Notre Dame players, and I was just kind of curious. What do you guys think about Cincinnati? And a lot of them were like, oh, no, you know, I don't think that the college football playoff is going to let them in. I mean, they've proven themselves. They beat a ranked Notre Dame team, which may be their biggest win of the season, but they were primed and ready, and it was literally a perfect storm. So, yes, I have jumped on the Cincinnati bandwagon. I'm all about watching the underdog succeed. So it's going to be really interesting, because they do have a lot to prove, but again, their competition level is not that great, but they are throwing up some crazy, crazy numbers, just like they beat UCF 56-21. So I think it's going to be interesting. What are we saying now? Yeah, tell me about it. And that's the thing that I kind of enjoy watching, kind of from a player's perspective, is after a big game, what does the team do? Is the coach able to ride that momentum, keep the kids fired up, and kind of use that momentum to finish throughout the season? Again, not so tough opponent, but they'll have to change a little philosophy. They're going to be playing Navy next, so let's kind of see what happens there. So let's move to number 2.
Number 2, Alabama.
Okay, so these guys moved up a spot to number 2 because Iowa lost. They beat Mississippi State decisively, 49-9, and I think now they're starting to throw up those numbers against opponents they're supposed to be beating, again, to kind of prove themselves. They really are, surprisingly, they really aren't going to be playing any more ranked players or good teams until they get to Auburn in the Iron Bowl, which I think is it's great. There's been some classic Iron Bowls still. Do you have a favorite Iron Bowl, or did you see the one where I think it was the Auburn punter returned, or no,
it was the DB returning the field goal miss.
Yes.
That was my favorite one, because they upset Alabama in that game too.
It was crazy. So
and it was just crazy.
And actually, they always play the radio broadcast of that play, which was always better. I don't know if you ever noticed that, but because the radio guys have to describe everything, it just sounds more exciting when you actually can see it as they're talking. But I mean, that game is great. And then, again, it talks about the level of the SEC. But again, if you look at kind of those big games, I mean, the Iron Bowl is one of them, and that's even they play that game before the SEC championship. So literally, that's like a Tuesday for some of these teams. So it makes it kind of interesting.
It's going to be a great one. You got to check it out. It's always a rivalry game. Always.
And then again, Nick Saban's going to be playing a Tennessee team who hopefully will have won't have any players suspended. It will cost them $250,000, but hopefully they'll have a chance to kind of show up and kind of see what they can do against a number 2 Alabama. But again, I mean, folks got to be careful because you don't want to play a really good team when they're pissed, because they tend to practice harder. They want to prove themselves. They're ranked number 2. Not sure when that happened the last couple of years. I mean, they've always been kind of ranked number 1, preseason number 1. They feel that kind of they kind of have to prove themselves. And I think that's what's great. That's what makes teams that great, because the players, the coaches, they expect this great level of excellence, and being number 2 in the country is not good enough for them.
Right.
And you think about 100 other teams that would die to be in that situation. They don't want to be number 2. They want to be number 1. So I think that's going to be great. And again, it's going to be Iron Bowl, then the SEC championship.
As Akon would say, it's going to be dangerous.
We're quoting Akon. That's all.
Dangerous. You remember that song?
I know. I missed that one. I missed that one.
Dangerous.
You'll have to play it for me.
Dangerous. She's a bad. Oh man, you missed.
I did. I apologize about that. So let's go to number 1.
Number 1, Georgia.
All right, folks. As you know, I'm a defensive player. Georgia's been crazy playing some great defensive ball. Before this game, the highest team, the team that scored the most points, 13. I think it may have been Arkansas. I forgot what it was, but we saw Kentucky put up 13. Again, there were some positive things for Kentucky, but at the end of the day, Georgia held them to, I think, 54 yards rushing or something like that. And when you shut a rushing game down like that, all you got to do is pin your ears back, and you're going to have quarterback pressure, quarterback hits. I think they had like 3 or 4 sacks, something like that. So Georgia really is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And just kind of interesting how we may see a matchup somewhere down the line between a Cincinnati, Phil, and I know I'm talking about this again, talking about my theories, a Cincinnati team that beat them in the bowl game. They may have a chance to play Georgia in the playoffs. And, is that going to be a doozy? Because now you're going to have all of your team there and not, half the team departing for the NFL. So I think folks may have a chance to see really what happens when when Georgia plays defense.
Yeah, this is something that looks to be setting up, especially in your poll. Georgia, the defense and that defensive lineman, obviously led by him, just dominant speed, physicality, and all of that, setting up for your, you called it. You were talking about Cincinnati, looking back on the shows, Notre Dame, kind of their Super Bowl, but also their launching point, their launch pad to get to that point. If they were able to get past Notre Dame in Notre Dame, again, people look now, Notre Dame. No, at that time, that's the challenge. That's what I hate, those blog polls, I call them, because these writers don't get football is any given Saturday or Sunday.
Weekend,
and that week, you had Notre Dame ranked or picked to win, Jimmy.
Absolutely, right.
So
Exactly.
Remember that.
Exactly.
Remember that, Jimmy?
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to look at these things. And, titles shouldn't be won or lost by the reputation of the conference. It should be watched on tape. Cincinnati is a great football team. Georgia, as you and I were just cracking up laughing, it looks like they got 4 first-round, maybe 5 first-round defenders on their team. So,
which is scary. I mean,
scary.
So imagine, again, my crazy theory is imagine if they have a chance to line up against these guys again. I mean,
exactly.
They want to go out there and prove themselves. They want to say, you know, hey, all this started kind of on our backs. But again, I kind of go back 5-6 years ago when Brian Kelly decided to schedule, or the athletic department, Jack Swarbrick, athletic director at Notre Dame, decided to schedule a Cincinnati because of the relationship they had with Brian Kelly and Cincinnati and Notre Dame. So again, way before this, they're thinking, hey, you know, let's just go ahead and pay them, you know, $1 million to come play us. And then they beat us. So that's kind of interesting. So that's in the one thing I do have to say. So they don't have any ranked opponents left. Georgia. So they have. I mean, they're obviously going to win out. They're going to be throwing up some crazy numbers, and I mean, they'll have a chance to see. You know, and I think A&M obviously has one game over Alabama, but I think A&M lost one of the SEC games, so I think Alabama would kind of have a chance to play Georgia in the SEC championship game. And quite honestly, I think the way the attitude that Alabama has now, I think it's going to be. I think that would be a really, really good game. Really good game.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's going to be exciting, and that's the one thing. The SEC championship is going to be setting the stage. That opens that back door, as you're saying.
Sure.
And that's the reality of where this football 2021 is.
Well,
that
and then I think a couple years ago, the SEC championship was actually better than the rest of the games that they played after that. So, I mean, you know, there's something to be said when it's, you know, when they play great ball. But I digress. Shall we go through the Super 16 for Week 7, Phil?
There they are.
Hey.
The
we
Chris
got Purdue.
Zorich Super 16, Week 7, Super 16 poll show. Chris Zorich, top 16 right here.
So we got Purdue that surprised me and everybody else in the country, I'm sure. Texas A&M is back there. Ole Miss, Kentucky at 12. We got another kind of storybook season here for a team at Wake Forest. 11, Michigan. Oklahoma State at 10. Michigan State. Again, they have a tough road ahead. They're at 9. Penn State. Iowa got knocked down to 7 from being number 2. We have Oregon. Ohio State's now at 5. Oklahoma 4. Cincinnati at 3. Alabama at 2. And for the second week in a row, Georgia at number 1.
Look at that. He's Chris Zorich every week here, Monday nights. He will be bringing his Super 16 poll show, unbiased, unfiltered rankings of his top 16 teams in college football. Every week he does it. He does it amazingly well. And after he does it, he gives his feelings, his vibes.
Not really excited about this week. There aren't any ranked matchups in my Super 16. So I'm kind of, this is kind of one of those off weeks that there really isn't any. However, that means that there may be some upsets going on. I mentioned before Wake Forest Army, not necessarily for an upset, but it's a challenge to play the military teams because they really have a lot more discipline than we have as scholarship athletes. Their linemen are like 225, 250 if you're lucky, and they can dominate a game. If you get behind, you're definitely in trouble. So my first one's going to be Wake against Army. Watch out for that game. Another one, surprisingly, and I think Oregon has a chance to kind of get back on the map a little bit, is going to be Oregon, UCLA, and I saw that College Game Day is going to be there, so it's going to be kind of a fun time. My third team is going to be USC at Notre Dame, not because I'll be at the game, hopefully, but it's going to be an interesting game to see if Notre Dame can kind of bounce back, kind of establish themselves with a team that currently doesn't have a head coach. So this is a chance for them. And this is kind of, I'm going to allude to this in my final thoughts, but I have BYU at Washington State. And the reason why I have that game up, because I want to see how this Washington State team is going to react, because their head coach wound up getting fired for various reasons I'll get into in my thought of the day. And then the last one is going to be LSU. Again, craziness. Big O is out of there. Orgeron is out of there after they beat Florida. But apparently it wasn't enough, but I'll kind of get to that later. They're going to play Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss. So those are my top 5.
That's his top 5. Every week he's going to give you his 16, the top 5 matchups of the upcoming week. And he always will give you his final thought. Before he does that, you can follow Chris Zorich on his YouTube channel at Chris Zorich, as well as Twitter. Give his podcast as well, the Chris Zorich podcast, to follow. He always is having some amazing guests, either in business world, sports world, former teammates, GMs, scouts, agents. He's got everybody on his podcast. Please go over there, follow him on iTunes or whatever podcast streaming service you listen to. The Chris Zorich podcast, as well as this show, can be listened to. The Super 16 poll show. We had a lot of truck drivers out there saying thanks to Chris. Now I have another TTNL show in my library while I'm driving. And I know we're pushing up against the next show here. So let's get to Chris.
I will be quick. So I'm going to keep you on here, Phil, because I'm going to kind of talk about this. So the thought of the day is, what the heck are they doing firing coaches during the season, right? So I literally mentioned, from the last couple ones I mentioned, we got USC coaches gone, LSU, like I mentioned before, Orgeron is gone, Washington State coach is gone. Now, the Washington State thing is obviously a little controversial. For those folks who don't know, the head coach decided not to take a COVID test, and that's why he was kind of let go. But, okay, that being aside, Orgeron just won a national championship, 3 years ago? Are you kidding me?
I don't get this. I don't know if there's something in and again, it's speculation. Here's this guy, Urban Meyer, doing what he did with the Jags. I'm playing bowling with a human being. That's the only way I could put it cleanly. And he still has a job. And Eddie O, we don't know. We don't know why he's going to go. It's almost like a Dr. Seuss poem.
Well,
he's just decided, right?
Well, but it's interesting. Well, apparently from an article I read, it was after the Kentucky game. They were 3-3. Him and the AD sat down and they just said, hey, this is not the direction LSU is going. Now, before that, I was an AD, not on that level by any means, but if I'm the AD, I'm going to allow you one. Well, he's going to finish the season out, which is good. But let's have that talk after the season, because emotions are flying. You could be so pissed off after the game that you're telling your kids off. You're telling your wife, you're telling your boss off. So let's kind of wait a couple weeks. Let it simmer down. Again, 3-3. That's not LSU. Okay, that's great, but they may win out. Okay, so now you're talking about a better record. We can improve, but then also recruiting is going to be affected. And then, with his coaching staff, there's a $9.5 million buyout that LSU is going to have to come up with, which I'm sure they obviously can, or they wouldn't be having this conversation. But I just kind of wanted you to kind of get your take on, because your dad was a coach, what does that do for a team when a coach leaves or they fire a coach during the year?
Well, I think the way they announced it too, to your point, I think it just leaves this kind of bad taste, especially in the young student athlete mind. Like in the NFL, you kind of could do this kind of stuff because culturally you're dealing with people that are getting paid And if they're not playing up to snuff, obviously, speaking in Chicago terms, this should have happened after the Browns game for them.
Right.
But the reality is, in college, there's a difference because you're teaching young men to be, men, and you're coaching at the same time. This guy, like you said, won the national championship. It's not like he won the SEC. He won the national championship. There's got to be something to that. And he's a great recruiter, well-liked. And again, it just reeks of some sort of conspiracy behind the scenes or something, because I don't like the announcing that this is it. Sure. But I think it might be something motivated to motivate the players that love this guy, that they're going to give their heart out for the end. But Chris, I'm with you. I just, something you got to sit down at the end of the season. If you decide you're going to part ways, and you do that, I don't like it. I was shocked.
Shocked.
I was.
After a win, too. After a win.
Exactly. Like, what? This guy's a good coach. Well, somebody's going to get a good coach.
Oh, my gosh. And then it's funny because...
I know he's funny how he talks.
I love it. Well, then, didn't he... So there was actually a 60-minute piece on him this year, actually. Yeah. And it was great. I think he actually got a scholarship to LSU, but then either left after a year or did. It was kind of something. But he's a Louisiana guy, and for that to happen this way, it just.
What are the whys?
Exactly. What are the whys? Because that is just.
It's a perfect drop for that.
I am amazed.
Well, you know him every week here, TTNL. Obviously, we kicked off the show just embracing what the weekend was, all of us together. Chris Zorich, the class act, the smile that lights up a room, and the personality that everybody wants to be around. You're a true professional, a brother for life now, a friend to the end, and all of us at TTNL couldn't thank you more. Tonight, though, you crushed it. I love your poll tonight. I really, truly
even
do.
After my double 14, huh?
Even after that, I gave you that
double
mistake.
14.
As long as it ain't a double doink, we'll live with it.
There you go. Well, thank you very much, Kathleen. I appreciate that. He's my new brother from another mother.
Yes, and we'll be back next week. Again, another college football weekend. I'm looking forward to it. There's nothing like college football. Nothing like it. The bands, the atmosphere. Next week, I'm going to ask Chris. Next week, I'm going to ask you, Chris, about the HBCU and Deion Sanders and the movement there. I really want to hear your take on it. Cherie, don't let me forget that. Next week, obviously, Deion trying to use the power of Prime to change a dynamic that has been overlooked for years. I think it's something we got to talk about. The one show I'm going to tell people to check out, Chris, do you got one this week or no? It's been a busy week for you.
Dude, it was crazy, man. I was talking to my daughter. My daughter came back from school.
Yep.
And my daughter and I dissected about 5 episodes of course, your favorite show, Squid Game. So
yes.
It's kind of interesting,
we went back into it.
Getting a young person's perspective kind of on the whole show. So I do have to thank you for that. That kind of gave a couple-hour conversation with my daughter that I may not have had. So thank you very much, sir.
Well, check out The Warrior, Chris. Everybody check out Chris Zorich. Check out all of the TTNL family. Tomorrow we'll be back with Dion Miller from ABC 7 Chicago on Keeping It 100. This week we'll be breaking down the tape. We'll be X's with the O's and back on BHL on Sunday after Tampa versus the Bears. For Chris Zorich, I'm your guy, DDP.
There we go.
Tape Never Lies Network. Thanks for watching the Super 16 Poll Show with Chris Zorich. Like, subscribe, and comment. This has been a special presentation of the Tape Never Lies Network. Performance over politics.